Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wrestling Royalty and Gimme a Ho Yeah. We are streaming live across both channels, and I'm here. My name is Andy, if you haven't met me before, and I'm here basically to have a bit of a chat about the previous week and what a week it's been. This time last week, we were gearing up for what was billed as the biggest WrestleMania event ever, WrestleMania 40, WrestleMania XL, whatever it is you want to kind of call it. I hope you had a great WrestleMania weekend, and basically, I am here tonight, or whenever you're watching this, to recap my trip. I was lucky enough to fly across to Philadelphia from the UK and have a great time. If you are in watching, please let me know if my audio is okay, because I've got a new microphone that I'm trying to use out today. So if you can hear me loud and clear, just make sure you hit me up with a comment and let me know everything is a-okay. But I'm going to try a few different things out tonight that we haven't done before on the channel, either here or on Give Me a Ho Yeah. And I appreciate you being here tonight. If you were WrestleMania, I'd love to hear from you. What was your experience like? If you watched it at home, what was your experience like? What was your favorite matches? I know the guys over on Give Me a Ho Yeah that is this streaming on also did a kind of review, a recap session. You had Sam and Dom, I believe, that did that one, as well as the amazing Mr. Dan Hargreaves, who tightened up my thumbnail a little bit there. He was doing the watch longs over the weekend. So if you've watched any of those, thank you very much from all the lads. Give me a ho yeah. I really appreciate you. And we appreciate anyone who supports the channel. And if you do want to support the channel, the best way you can do that is by hitting that subscribe button, hitting that like button, watching some of the videos. If you want, there's a way to follow the guys over on Gimme Ho Yeah, and you can not just subscribe to the channel, you can become a member as well. So check out the channel and all that good stuff as well. But if you did watch it, thank you very much. But here tonight, I am going to be talking about flying across to Philly, what I got up to, because it was maybe a little bit different to what some people's experience would be. I'm happy to take any kind of questions that you'd like to know. What was it like being in the stadium? Was it as cold as Michael Cole kept saying it was on the Saturday? Things like that. And if you are thinking about going to WrestleMania in the future, please feel free to drop a comment or a question as to what you'd like to know about how to go to WrestleMania, especially if you're in the UK. That side of things I can help out with. If it's about tickets, I can help out with that sort of stuff in terms of answering any questions. They are expensive. That's the one thing I'll say before anyone tries to say anything else. It is expensive. However, as long as you come to terms with that, as long as you make peace with that early on, you're going to have a great time. And there's lots to do, no matter what city it's in. WrestleMania attracts so many different promotions from around the world, so many wrestlers from around the world, and they normally pick somewhere pretty cool to do it as well. So there's always plenty to do in the city wherever they go. Obviously, this year we're in Philly, the city of brotherly love, which I had to find out why that was, and it's actually to do with the name Philadelphia comes from, I think it's Greek or Latin, which means brother and love. So I never knew that before. But there you go. The more you know. But if you are joining us tonight, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to try not to make this like your aunt or uncle who's been away on a trip and does like a PowerPoint presentation. It is going to be slightly like that at times, but I also have some videos that I hope work, where I'm going to be able to show you a little bit about where I was in the stadium and where I went previously as well, even before that, because I went to a couple of the independent shows as well, whether it be one of the Progress shows. I was across at the ECW arena, which was really cool to see ECW and its origins, and there was a few ECW legends called in at that memorial show for WrestleCon, so I'll have a little bit of a chat about that as well. As I said, if you are watching this and you went to WrestleMania, please, of course, let me know your experiences, because I think one of the beautiful things about going to WrestleMania is no one has the same experience. You all go to maybe a different show. Maybe you only go to WWE, or maybe you only go to WrestleMania or one night, things like that. So anyone who goes to Philadelphia, anywhere who's to WrestleMania, I'm sure you had a brilliant time. I hope you had a brilliant time. And let me know what you got up to, because I think it's fascinating. But I was there live, just to make sure that no one thinks this is me kind of bluffing my way through any kind of stream. I was across in Philadelphia. I flew across last Wednesday. I'm from Newcastle, and I know this is Give Me a Ho Yeah. This is going on as well. Not too far up the road, up the A1 from Hull. But it's fantastic to be able to travel across from the UK, and I do love traveling across to the United States as well. So I went across with my friend Andy, who is one of the originals across here on Wrestling Royalty. Myself and Andy started that up as a podcast on Spotify. I don't know if any of those early episodes are still kicking around. That kind of then morphed into myself carrying this onto YouTube and then meeting up with the boys over and Give Me a Whole Yes. And now we kind of do these dual streams. So if you're watching on either channel, welcome. And if you are looking about, always love to hear from you. But this was my seat for night 2. I did have a slightly different view from night 1. So it was good to kind of get around the arena a little bit. And that also comes with some positives and some negatives. But I will say night 2 being down here in the level 100 section, pretty much straight on with the ring and being able to have that view of the stage was fantastic. It was definitely the better of the two, but there were, on that cold night, some positives to being where I was there. Before we start, I do love American culture and American history. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that sort of stuff. And I find when you go to the States, if there is a way to see the area or maybe a little bit outside the area before the wrestling starts, it's a great excuse to go traveling and see a little bit more of the country, because everything in America is very different, state to state, city to city. So if you do have a chance to travel around, I implore you, take that chance. You've probably spent a lot of money on your flight tickets to go across. We decided to go to Washington, D.C. and meet friends over on Thursday. We got up very early. I think we got up at like 3:30 to get on a 4:45 a.m. train across to Washington, D.C. But we got this beautiful picture where we went to the Capitol. There was not a single person of the security around. We had to wander down around the Capitol as well and saw things like the White House, the Abraham Lincoln Memorial, the George Washington Memorial, things like that. So for me, it was a great excuse to check out a city that I might not have otherwise had a chance to. It was a couple of hours on the train. The train was very spacious. Definitely more so than the cramped trains we get on the UK for the ridiculous amount of money that we pay, but that is a completely different story. But that was a great opportunity to check out some of the culture and very much learn about the US history and the past. I will freely say, if you're going across as a Brit to the US and you learn about the history, be prepared to be the bad guy, because we do not cope well when talking about US history. We're not painted as very, very nice. So yeah, just be prepared for that if you do across. But the Capitol building was beautiful. Lots of different statues, artwork, etc. in there that have been commissioned, and it's a free tour. A lot of the stuff in America, when it comes to museums, seems to be free outside of New York, etc. But definitely worth going to see it if you get a chance to go to any of the Smithsonian's. Absolutely do it. That is about as close as you get to the White House, and of course, going back to Philly, my other channel that I run on YouTube is Roller Coaster of Running, where I do document my running journey. I put out running YouTube videos on that side of things, and there was a run in Philly, and it started and ended at the beautiful location of the famous Rocky Steps, which is outside one of the art museums in Philadelphia, and you could see the steps straight away. And I gotta say, Stallone taking those steps 2-3 at a time in the first Rocky, what an absolute legend, because I thought I was going to stack it on my face, so I had to take them quite slowly. But after the race finished, I had the chance to run up the Rocky Steps, and of course I was going to take it. So you get this lovely view looking back down the road into Philadelphia, downtown Philadelphia, the sort of build-up skyscraper area. And there's the medal I got. It was a hot chocolate, so you got some hot chocolate at the end, and it was fairly cold. But when you're running, it doesn't matter too much. So yeah, just a couple of bits and pieces before the wrestling side of things kicked off for the weekend. And of course, when we're talking about Philadelphia, a lot of people will associate it with those famous Philly cheesesteaks. The two that people will push on you quite hard is Geno's steaks, you can see on the left. And then you've got Pat's steaks, which does appear in the Rocky film as well. That's on the right-hand side. And these two fast food restaurants, I guess you kind of call them, they have like sort of windows, or the one for Pat's at the moment is a food truck. And they are opposite each other, literally looking at each other opposite, and they are fierce rivals in terms of who does the best. I believe Pat's is the originator of the Philly cheesesteak, at least out of the two of them anyway. But you can get Philly cheesesteaks pretty much at any restaurant around. Myself and Andy got one from each. Half of them wanted to try a little bit of one from the other. I thought the steak was better at Pat's, but I thought the bread and the cheese was better at Gino's. So if you did try a Philly cheesesteak out there, I'd love to hear your opinion on which one you liked better, or if you found somewhere completely different. They sold them at the arenas, the stadiums, etc. as well. So very much a staple of the Philly food scene. So if you are going to go check it out, this is a little bit of a walk through past the Italian markets. You can see a lot of the different locations that Rocky was filmed at. So if you are a big Rocky fan, you can kind of walk the same streets that he was doing, or when he goes for his run, etc., and check that out. I believe some of the friends of the channel who were across there for media as well, they had a little bit of a self tour, I guess, of Philadelphia to find different Rocky hotspots and locations from the film. So if you are a big fan, it's a great place to go in there and check that out. And there's always a chance while you're there, you can meet up and you can see some of the guys who are on the shows, some of the ones who are maybe injured at the moment or just across there enjoying themselves, and they are associated with the TV crew, etc. And one of the best places we found was the Reading Terminal Market, which is basically a big food market. Now I'm going to try and throw this up and see if this works as the first video, and hopefully it's not deafening. This is the kind of thing we're talking about while we're there. This is Reading Market, and there's plenty of food places that you can go, little delis, etc. But there's also sit-down cafes and restaurants, and plenty of chances basically for you to grab some great food, and very cheap, in my opinion. Nothing that's horrifically expensive. Obviously, they do sell things at delis that are quite expensive, and they do sell normal things like fruit and veg. We went to a New Orleans style cafe. We went to a normal American diner. You can buy cookies, etc. And this is where I met Shotzi. We also saw people like Ilya Dragunov were there. We saw Gunther. But the thing I would suggest, if you do see wrestlers when they're out in public and doing their own thing rather than at a show, please make sure that you respect that they are people at the end of the day, because, for example, Gunther was holding his baby, a very, very tiny baby. I don't think it's appropriate to ask for a photo or anything like that. But feel free to say big fan and then move on, or just don't talk to them in general. Just kind of give them a bit of a nod, and I'm sure they'd appreciate you respecting their privacy and their time off. But on the whole, if you ask and you're very respectful, people will give you photos. And you saw Josh Briggs. He was walking around the shop that was there for WWE World, the superstore for WrestleMania, where you can get all your merchandise, apparel, etc. I had a quick chat with him and just said I was looking forward to seeing him at NXT, and I thought that match was absolutely fantastic. And he just said, I'm just here as a fan. I'm happy just to take photos if anyone recognizes me, but if not, I'm here to grab a couple of t-shirts. And he was there with a couple of the other NXT guys and girls as well. So great to see people like recognizing them, but also being pretty respectful. Carmelo Hayes was at WWE World. He just got a tattoo done, and he was there with his partner, who was just about to get her tattoo done as well. And a couple of us just asked if we could get a quick photo, and he was very courteous to do so. So if you do see them, they are human. A lot of them will be very nice. Some of them might say no. If that's the case, just move on. And respect that right for them to say no. WWE World was fantastic. They had a lot of different sets within the building. It was at the convention center. I think it's the Pennsylvania Convention Center it was in. They had things like the old ECW entrance was kind of mocked up. You had these shark cages from War Games. There was another video which I'll throw up now, where you could do things like walk through the door that Bray Wyatt came back on his return. They also had the Firefly Funhouse. So they had a lot of different sets, and you could get some photos, you get some videos. But again, really great experience. You can also get some autographs. This is where if you wanted to meet wrestlers and you could pay money to do so, to get them to have a proper photo with you, where an actual photographer will do it for you, or get some autographs. This is where you could do it and pay money to do so. They had those VIPs, which are talking about the top stars in the company, things like that. So if you are a big fan of collecting autographs, or if you want to have a picture for you to refer back to and remember that time that you went to WrestleMania, those times, this is the place to do it. They also have big stages where you can meet people for free. When we were there, they had the likes of Dakota Kai was signing. I believe Bianca Belair was signing. So there's every opportunity for you to collect them. And if you're just patient, they are quite long lines. Sometimes they'll be there, and then you're halfway through the line, and then they would change it for someone else. But there's always lots going on in WWE World. A lot of people were referring back to the fact it wasn't as good as what used to be Access. This is a Fanatics run event, and this is the first of its kind. So I think I would implore you maybe to not compare it straight away, because there's a lot of teething problems. This is the first time Access hasn't been there, and WWE World has. So Fanatics have that learning period. And yes, it was quite a bit of money. It cost $60 to get in. You could find a discount code online. I think we managed to get ours for about 40. But you've got Pat McAfee was there doing his podcasts. You have people doing talks. Bianca Belair was doing a spotlight on herself. I think there was also things like the Bray Wyatt panel, which was very emotional from the videos that I saw. Also had a couple of teasers for the likes of Taylor, who is looking like is going to come back imminently into WWE. You might know him as Bo Dallas. But yeah, Taylor Rotunda was around there, and it seemed to be that maybe we're going to see Uncle Howdy. And if you want to know a little bit more about that side of things, Dom is going to go live with a video, I believe it's at 10 o'clock on Gimme a Hole Yeah, 10 p.m. UK time. So basically in about an hour and 10 minutes, you can watch Dom wax lyrical and come up with some crazy theories as to why Taylor Rotunda is imminently coming back. Maybe as Uncle Howdy, maybe not. Maybe something completely different. So tune in for Dom. And if you're watching this and it's already passed, go check that video out, because Dom is one of the most passionate guys you'll find when he's talking about storylines and creepy storylines and things like that. So he's definitely worth checking out if you are a fan of that side of things. The shows themselves, we went to the SmackDown, the Hall of Fame, NXT Stand and Deliver. We did leave before Raw. We did have tickets, but we chose to move. We'll get back to the UK on the Monday, beat the traffic, as it were, and try and keep the cost down a little bit. As WrestleMania, as I said at the top of the show, can get quite expensive. But the Wells Fargo Center, which is located in the same area as the Link, they are just a car park away from each other. And then you've also got the Phillies stadium, the baseball stadium is across the other side of the car parks as well. So all the sports teams are very handily put together, just one, like a few metro stops away from the city centre. So very easy to get around, or you can get an Uber. The traffic did get pretty bad. So if you were getting an Uber, I can imagine you were stuck in traffic for quite a while. But the great thing about all the WWE shows being in the same areas, you can kind of learn from each night that you go what's easiest, what worked well, what didn't work well, and change from there. So we saved a lot of money on the last night or two by using the Metro system instead of getting an Uber, and it saved a lot of time as well. Very easy. So it depends where they are next year. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But certainly the stuff at the Wells Fargo was great. We were in the top tier, and we decided to move down to see a little bit more of the Hall of Fame, because what happened was basically we noticed there was a lot of seats that were still free, and we decided to have a bit of a cheeky move down because there was like an area or two where there was no one sat there. And then after Paul Heyman, basically you could pretty much pick where you wanted to sit, because as soon as Paul Heyman's speech was done, most people in attendance decided to leave. Now, it'd be interesting to pick the brains of someone who was in charge of that decision, because obviously it is a long night. We didn't finish on the Friday after SmackDown and after the Hall of Fame until roughly 1. I think it was 1:15 by the time the Rock wrapped up. So it is such a long night, the Hall of Fame, and it's something that I think they need to address like soon rather than later. They can't keep doing this, because it was a little bit disrespectful for the talent and the people who were going into the Hall of Fame coming up, and that was everyone who was either the inducting or the inductee, and I felt sorry for them. I really did. By the time Thunder Robinson came around, like that was pretty embarrassing. There was very sparse amounts of people there. The guy's been around for a long time. It would have been nice for people to stick around. And obviously The Rock was kind of finishing things off. and he came out and maybe cut a slight promo on Cody. There just wasn't that many people. So the idea that Paul Heyman went on first was probably great for him to have like a full house. And yes, he was headlining, first announced, etc. But I thought it was a little bit disappointing from the perspective that everyone else didn't really get a chance to do it in front of people. But that's my opinion. I think personally they need to move Stand and Deliver possibly to the Sunday day, possibly have a little bit of a shift around with how they do things. Do they do it on a Thursday night? Something has to be done because it's too long a thing to put on after a SmackDown, because you've got 2 hours of SmackDown and you're asking the fans to be there early to make sure they're in their seats, and then you've got another 3 hours or so of a Hall of Fame, and everyone's lagging, and you know, it's not conducive to a good atmosphere, a good crowd. Maybe they should go back to doing it in more intimate settings with people who actually are paid to be there, rather than it being tacked on as part of SmackDown or things like that. But yeah, the Hall of Fame, I'm sorry to say, it's got to be moved. Something's got to be done. Do you change it so one person goes in? Do you change it so a couple of people go in? Because they're going to run through people there anyway. So maybe this is the chance where they have a bit of a hard reset when it comes to Hall of Fame. It'd be interesting what they do next year on Netflix when everything goes live and everything's in one place, or at least for most of the world anyway. Stand and Deliver was fantastic, and they had some great matches on there. I personally thought the triple threat match for the North American Championship was great. The tag team match at the beginning of the night of the day was a great way to kick off WrestleMania weekend properly. And I was a little bit disappointed with Trick versus Mello. I thought it should have had at least another 5 minutes or so. And that was a little bit disappointing because it was built as such a big thing, such a vicious rivalry, and then it didn't really have that payoff. But the show itself, I thought, was great. The idea of having Julia there was fantastic, and a bit more old school of the NXT, and a couple of teasers as to where we might go for the future. But yeah, great to see Stand and Deliver get such a big crowd as well. I believe there was about 16,000 in attendance, or what was advertised anyway. As I mentioned, we did manage to go to the ECW arena, which was heavily referenced by Paul Heyman in his speech. And we went for the Mark Hitchcock Memorial, which is the WrestleCon Super Show, which was basically a bit of a variety. And I have been to better WrestleCon shows. I thought stuff like New Orleans was fantastic. This one was a little bit more, there was a lot of legends from the past, and it was kind of propped up a little bit that way. But this match in particular, you can see Michael Oku, who's a fantastic British wrestler. If you haven't checked him out, make sure you go check out some of his stuff. But possibly the highlight of the night was either seeing RVD in the ECW arena. I believe, if I remember rightly, he went against Speedball Mike Bailey, and you can see an interview with Speedball over on WrestleSphere. And we also were very privileged to see an entrance, and again, I apologize, I filmed this on my phone, where in the main event, we had I don't know if it was a death match or just basically like a hardcore match. And of course, who else could possibly come and help out other than the Sandman himself? He came out just as things were looking a bit bleak in the main event. I was quite pleased with getting this video because this happened literally right in front of me. Sandman was happy to give beer out to anyone who was asking for it, and he did so. And yeah, lots of people were very, very pleased to see Sandman come out to the famous Metallica song, and it was great to hear it, great to see it. I don't want to play it. If I played the sounds, it could get a copyright strike, and that's not what I'm about. As you can tell, a lot of people were very excited to see Sandman in the ECW arena, the original ECW arena, not the Hammerstein or anything like that. This is the that famous corner in Philadelphia, and it was great to be there and experience it. Obviously, since the ECW days, it's been given a bit of a polish up. There's bars, etc., to go to that are a little bit more, I would imagine, uniformed than they ever have been previously. It was a great show. WrestleCon Super Show is definitely a cornerstone of WrestleMania weekend, and that was on the Thursday evening. You'll see people like Mustafa Ali turned up, and Matt Riddle was there. Lots of people who'd kind of just been released. Dolph Ziggler, Nick Namath was there. So it's something that you can enjoy, even if you're not a WWE fan. If you are a WWE fan, you'll still recognize some of the names. And if not, you might be introduced to names that you haven't seen before. After that, on the Saturday, on the Friday before SmackDown, we headed over to a building that was just outside Philadelphia City Centre, and this was where the GCW events were happening, the GCW Collective. We went across for the Progress show, being from the UK. It's always great to support UK wrestling, British wrestling. This is the first show that Progress have put on, I believe, since COVID struck, and it was fantastic to have them back in. You had the likes of Leon Slater, waving that banner for British wrestling and people seeing it. There's a lot of comedy wrestling, which I think went down pretty well because it was very different to the other stuff they'd had on. The night before, they'd have Bloodsport on, which, as you can appreciate, is a very different kind of crowd, a very different kind of audience that it caters for. And you've got lots of things like I think it's Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling, and it's there. Defy is there. So definitely a chance for you to check out lots. I believe they sell a pass for this, so you can go see all the matches and all the shows that happen for GCW under the Collective. They had them bundled together, so some of the people would basically spend a lot of their weekend here. These were shows that would start midday, and I believe on the Thursday night there was like an 11:59 p.m. showing into the Friday morning. So if you want to watch round the clock wrestling, it is absolutely possible over WrestleMania weekend. There are shows happening all over the city, the host city, in particular here. This was basically just like I believe it was like a fire station. It was like a meeting room sort of thing that they were hosting this in. So you get to see some kind of quirky buildings as well. But you also, more importantly, get to see some fantastic wrestling as well. So if that floats your boat, make sure you check that out if you are going in the future. WrestleMania itself, of course, took place Lincoln Financial Field, which was just across the road from the parking lot from Wells Fargo Center, where SmackDown, etc., were filmed and took place. So night one, as Michael Cole kept saying, was bloody freezing. There was, I think it was about 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. I believe they kept saying it was about 50 odd Fahrenheit on the show. And we saw those little graphics that were coming up. And Michael Cole joked that he'd become a sort of part-time or amateur meteorologist. I think they were saying that because there were so many people who were absolutely frozen, like solid, that I'm trying to impart on you how cold it was and why it might not have been as loud as people thought. I know they didn't have the lights on, which also didn't really make it feel like a WrestleMania where there was lots of people in attendance. The stadium was packed, but when you had a wind whistling around the link, you had kids crying that they wanted to go home. It was that cold. It was getting late. Obviously, The Rock was being on, and a lot of people who were going to night one or the weekend were very excited to see The Rock. He his was the face that was everywhere. But it is very important for you to understand it was cold, and that's why WWE kept saying it on their programming. So have a little bit of sympathy. It was great to be there, but it was at times pretty hard going when you were very tired, very cold and shivering, to stay through for, I think it was about 4 hours on night one. But if you did stay and you enjoyed it, then, it paid off massively. But the Lincoln Financial Field, very strange stadium, quite a small one, very intimate. You can feel like the crowd would be for an NFL game very much on top of the pitch. And Philly's a working class city, and I think from what we heard from the taxi drivers when we were there, it's very similar to places like Newcastle, where they live for the weekend for their sports teams, whether it be the American football, the basketball, the ice hockey, the Flyers, or the baseball teams, things like that. All the sports teams are very well backed, and everyone will live for the weekend where they can see them. So this was our seats for night one. We were in the club level, which the positives behind really being the club level was there was an area where you could go get refreshments, go to the toilet, which was heated. It was indoors, which was welcome relief between matches. When they play these long promos, you can run and go get yourself a pizza or cheesesteak, etc., drink. And this view, cameras always make things look a little bit further away. We weren't as far as that makes you look, but we were kind of diagonally on, so you have to think if it's an outdoor stadium like this one was, you are going to have these pillars, which is propping up the canopy, the light canopy. Unlike last year in LA, where they had a roof and they could kind of get around it a little bit differently, they couldn't do that here. They had to have these canopies to make sure that if it rains, the wrestlers don't slip over on the mat, and the lighting rig doesn't explode when water gets into it. So they have to be careful with how they set up. And unfortunately, yes, it does block you a little bit. And yes, sometimes if you're at this level, you might end up looking at the screen. But you are at WrestleMania and you're going to enjoy yourself because the atmosphere is fantastic. And even more so when we get to night two, because we were a little bit lower down for night two. And I'm going to play a video now where you'll see just how low we were. And this was actually taken when that mad end to night two's main event, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, is happening, and everyone seemed to be coming out, all the legends coming out. This is when Seth eventually did come out, but there was people were very confused who it was going to be. There was some shouts of, "Oh my God, is Dean Ambrose going to be here?" No, he wasn't, but the whole Seth stuff was a great callback and a great decision for creative to get their teeth into, for Roman to target Seth instead of Cody at the end of the match. I did run this through all the way, so obviously The Rock manages to stand tall, and what you will see is the lights go out and Taker's there. Is one of the loudest pops I've ever heard. I know a lot of people at the time were hoping it was going to be Stone Cold, and maybe reports are that they couldn't quite reach a financial agreement for that to happen. But when that gong hit, and you can see people starting to get excited now, and the lights go off, my word, what a noise. It was so loud, and people were so excited to see The Undertaker back in. And it's a great moment for The Undertaker because he effectively retired at a WrestleMania, or, on a SmackDown, in front of TV monitors, and that's very disappointing. So for him to get this moment to hear the love and the respect and the reaction that he got was fantastic. So we got to see Undertaker back in there and John Cena back in there and Jimmy and Jay and stuff getting involved, and it was just so deliciously overbooked, but fantastic viewing, and being there live is something I don't think I'll ever forget. It was just such a moment for everyone involved. As you can see, everyone has their phones out. Everyone was screaming. Everyone had no idea what was going to happen next, but was just happy to be a part of it. And what a moment that was. And here, I've just put this up on Wrestling Royalty about an hour or two ago. You can see the finish of the match from our perspective. So pretty good seats. Again, the camera makes us look like we're a little bit further back than we actually were. We felt closer than this. But seeing history made and Cody finally finishing his story was a fantastic way to end the wrestling weekend. I did jump up quite high, and was very excited, as a lot of people around us were, to see Cody Rhodes beat Roman Reigns and win that championship belt. But yeah, just if you ever have a chance to go to WrestleMania, these are the kind of moments that you might be lucky enough to see. I was there last year with the boys from Give Me a Hell Yeah for in LA. A lot of us were disappointed that Cody didn't finish his story there, but it meant all that much more in Philadelphia when we got to see it, and everything else in between. So the stage this year, I know some people were a little bit underwhelmed by it. I believe they were slightly restricted by what they could do because of the way of the entrances into the Lincoln Financial Field. They were a little bit restricted by the size, things like that. So yes, maybe they didn't go as much as like the cinema that they had last year at LA, but that's because the SoFi Stadium is absolutely ridiculously big, whereas this was very compact, a much smaller setting. And it's going to be interesting going forward now that we are in the TKO era, and seeing what kind of stadiums they book. I'll be interested to see if they are solely going to book indoor stadiums where it might be a little bit warmer and you might avoid that kind of lack of atmosphere on the first day, or the way it came across on TV was definitely a lack of atmosphere. And yeah, let's see what they do. But those aerial shots, they can never really truly be replaced in terms of like seeing WrestleMania and the spectacle of this many people inside a stadium, an outdoor setting. That can't be replicated by having indoor ones. So it'd be very interesting to see how they get that balance right. There's very heavy rumors about it being Minneapolis next year, or maybe Vegas, or maybe that's the kind of next two. After that, you've got the new Nashville Stadium, which should be ready. Will we ever get it in London? Big questions about that as well. yeah, we'll see. It'd be fantastic to see where they go next. Hopefully, I'll be there. Hopefully, a couple of the lads from Gimme Hull might venture out as well. We've got some live events coming up this year in Europe. So if you've ever been to a live WWE premium live event, you might have been to one of the tours. They are very different. The atmosphere is different from the minute they start playing that opening sting, which obviously now we've got a new one. The then, now, forever, even the recording, like the piracy notice that they put at the front as well. The atmosphere just changes. You can feel that electricity in the air. It's just such an honor to be at WrestleMania and to be around, and obviously make the most of that when you have a chance to see the cities and where they're having this as well, and just really soak yourself in the atmosphere and the surroundings of WrestleMania is all the advice I could give you. In terms of if you ever decide to go, the best bit of advice I could give you is try and book your hotel as early as possible. I earlier today booked a hotel room in Minneapolis, and it's free cancellation, pay on arrival. So if you don't go, just cancel it. If things kind of start creeping up or situations change, just change it. Just like cancel it, and you don't have to go. There's absolutely no reason. It's not compulsory. So you could simply just say, I'm going to book a hotel room just in case. Gamble that it's going to be in Minneapolis. If you want to gamble that it's going to be Vegas, it's generally around the first weekend of April. You can always do that. So there's every opportunity that you can have it, give it a go. Just in a comment come through, Dean from Scenescape Shoppers in. He says, oi, oi. Here's me rocking up for a 9 p.m. start. You're about 40 minutes, 35 minutes too late. But it doesn't matter. It's always nice to see you, Dean. We are just talking about if you ever want to go to WrestleMania in the future, which Dean is very much probably in that camp. At some point, he would love to go to WrestleMania. And I'm definitely sure he's going to be kicking himself if he didn't get to go this year with The Rock. But as I said at the top of the show, it is expensive to go to WrestleMania. The price of the tickets just seems to be going one way. The hotels, obviously, that side of things, you can shop around, but if you don't get in early doors, that sort of thing can start creeping up. Flights are the same. Once hotels and flights, and when you're booking on the website, start to realize there's an event on, they work on dynamic pricing. They will shoot those prices up. So get in nice and early if you can. If you're in that position, then fantastic. There are some deals that can be picked up in terms of flights when places like BA have their sales. So it's always worth having a shop around. There's also some fantastic groups on Facebook. I believe one of them is like WrestleMania 41 UK travel group. There's always people in there that will be happy to help answer the questions. There's some lovely people who run that Facebook group. So if you do have any questions, if you think I'd love to go to WrestleMania, but I just don't know where I would even start, they've got lots of answers for your questions. I absolutely guarantee you. There's every opportunity for you to do one of the on-location packages. They work out expensive, but they bundle everything together for you, other than maybe your hotel and your flights. You've also got some companies that run it as well, like Wrestle Tours. Just be aware that places like that will put a little bit of a premium in because they've got to make money too. But they will take out any kind of hassle when it comes to booking everything individually. So you've always got that opportunity too. But all I can say is, and Dean says it there as well, you've got to remember the reason why you go to WrestleMania is for moments like that last 10 minutes of night two, seeing John Cena, seeing The Undertaker, seeing the title change hands, is just such an electrifying experience. And the way the crowd reacted, I think personally, this is the way that WWE is going to be going. They want to make things exciting. Yes, they'll have little callbacks like this now and then, but they're building up that storytelling, and that's amazing. And I think they're just going to go from strength to strength as well. And yeah, let's see what they do when it comes to WrestleMania 41 and the even more brand new era, in terms of like where do we go for the next 10 years. Because I guarantee by the time we hit WrestleMania 50, the landscape of professional wrestling will look very different. We're obviously moving to Netflix next year. There's going to be some big changes, and where does AEW fit in with that as well? They've had quite a tough week, and they've got some fantastic people. They have some fantastic matches week to week. How will they affect the landscape of wrestling moving forward as well? Obviously, Sam had a lot to say yesterday about the whole CM Punk footage. that was going on. Some people might not be aware of that. If you do want to check out Sam's opinions, and as he says at the top and throughout, they are just Sam's opinions. They don't necessarily represent everyone on the channel, but it was great to hear Sam very passionately speak about it as well. It's going to be weird to see where that goes. My opinion on it, I've played professional sports. I've probably been involved in little scuffles, like I would say that was, rather than it being anything different than that. I think it was just people with a lot of adrenaline in their souls, as Cody Rhodes would say, a little bit of testosterone kicking about, or a lot of testosterone kicking about. It's a bad look for the company to release that stuff now and not just moving on and healing, because let's face it, AEW has some of the best wrestlers in the planet. Let them do their thing and just add some storylines behind it. That's what you need. Like, they'll be absolutely fine if they do that. But yeah, as Sam said, it's not a great look for anyone involved. It should never have happened in the first place. It should have been avoided, as I've said on previous shows. But let's all move on, hey? Let's concentrate on the great weekend that was WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia. As if you are joining us late, feel free to check out the rest of what has been the last 40 odd minutes. And I hope you gain something from this. If you are going in the future, I'm always around. Find me on Twitter at Sporzy19. You can find me on Instagram as well. So feel free to pick my brains if you've got any questions about going to WrestleMania. I'm always happy to help out a fellow wrestling fan make their dream come true and get themselves there, and try and do it on whatever budget that you have as well. So if you want to sit front row, good on you. You go spend that 30 grand or whatever it is on a front row seat. If you want to go sit up in the nosebleeds and only spend about $80, you are still in the stadium. Not a single person can take away the fact that you were there live to see that ridiculous ending, that amazingly ridiculous ending to WrestleMania 40, and Cody finally finished his story. Go to WrestleMania. If you're a wrestling fan, if you're watching this, you have not been to a WrestleMania, I implore you to find a way to go. You will not regret it. It's not something that will ever cross your mind that I wish I hadn't done this. It is a fantastic experience. It is basically the mecca of professional wrestling. It's where a lot of us know big things happen, and it would be lovely to hear your stories in the future. Get yourself to WrestleMania, whether it's in Minneapolis, whether it's in Vegas, London, New York, New Orleans, anywhere. This is my 5th WrestleMania I've been to. I am extremely privileged to have been there. I am very aware of that. I've done it in all sorts of budgets and all different settings. And I've enjoyed the hell out of it every single time. And I'm sure if I go to another 5, or if I don't go to another one at all, I've enjoyed every single minute I've already been to, and I'll enjoy every single minute in the future too. If you do have any questions to say, give me a shout. And I really want to say thank you for anyone who's tuning in. Let me know what you're doing for the weekends. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Let me know about the wrestling that you're going to be watching. What are you excited for the rest of the year? Are you going to France? Are you going to Germany? Are you going to be going to Cleveland for SummerSlam? Are you waiting to see where WrestleMania 41 is going to be? Let us know your WrestleMania plans. Let us know your wrestling plans. Are you going to go to All In Wembley? That's another massive show that's coming up. Or are you even going to go to Glasgow for the Clash at the Castle, which I'm sure we'll be covering ad nauseum here on Wrestling Royalty and Gimme Hell Yeah. But for now, I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty and Gimme Hell Yeah. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will catch you next week.